Hello and welcome to episode 3, series 2 of the Coventry City Former Players Association podcast. What a month it's been since we were last with you. Promoted at Blackburn, champions at home to Portsmouth, the trophy lift against Wrexham, an amazing away day against Watford, the open top bus parade around the city, and all finished off with that marvellous afternoon at the War Memorial Park. I'm delighted to be joined today by one of the players responsible for our rise back to the Premier League. He joined in League Two, played 180 games, scoring 3 goals over 7 seasons, League Two playoff winner and captain of the side that won the League One Championship. It is Captain Fantastic, Liam Kelly. Thank you so much to our sponsor of today's podcast, Contractor Financial. Please like and subscribe wherever you're listening. And without further ado, please welcome Liam Kelly.
Let's go sing together.
What? Oh, what a goal! Gus Harmer scores! The Sky Blues are sky high.
Hello, Liam. Thank you for inviting us into your lovely house.
No, thank you for coming down to see us today. Yeah, Coventry was a big part of my life, and I had some fantastic seasons there. Met some brilliant people, and it's a place that I really enjoyed. And great time on the pitch, great time with the promotions, and I've enjoyed watching them the past couple of seasons as well.
That's good to hear. And I'm going to start with the most recent times, because we've seen you a few times in the past few weeks, and it's great to have you back. First time was at Legends Day, the Stoke game in February. You had a late call-up for that one?
Yeah, no, I was waiting to see whether I could make it. I didn't know whether I was going to be able to get there, but obviously last minute. It was the first time I've been to Legends Day, and it was a great day. It was nice seeing so many players that I played with, so many staff members, and obviously legends that have done so much for the football club. And just to see them and speak to them and speak to the fans, and being back at the football club, I think that might be my first or second time back that season. And just such a good atmosphere around the football club. Everything was on the way up, and just a privilege to get back there and get back on the pitch. First time we're back on the pitch since I was a player.
And you obviously get on with quite a few of the team that are still there that you played with, because I noticed a couple of the subs were warming up, came over and had a chat with you.
Yeah, I was considering going and joining them, have a little warm-up and get a feel of the ball again. But no, it was nice to see, familiar faces like Liam Kitchen and Ben Wilson, and, players that I played with for a number of years, and, just nice to see them enjoying their football and being successful. Yeah, look, I've got some great friends there, and it's a brilliant football club, and I'll try to make it back there as often as I can.
And chose a really good game where I think it was a last-minute winner from Radoni, and around the time where people were starting to get really excited about promotion.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think they've been in a great run of form, and like I said, when they're doing well, they seem to pick up these last-minute winners, which they have done all season. And yeah, look, I think you'll find it hard to find many bad games this season, so I would have had to tried really hard to pick the bad one. But yeah, they've been fantastic all year, haven't they? And obviously Radoni come up with the last-minute winner, and just made for a brilliant day in the end.
Well, it was great to have you back, and you were back again last week for what was a marvellous celebration at Coventry War Memorial Park at the end of the open top bus parade.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. I got a call from Tom of the media team, I think Thursday, Friday, asking me if I wanted to come and see the celebration and pass the trophy back to the team. And like I just said, I feel privileged to do it, and it was just such a great atmosphere. I can't believe the amount of fans that turned up. Obviously, 50,000 there in the Memorial Park, and then the amount of fans that were watching the buses go through. And yeah, it was a brilliant day. And just obviously, we've missed out on promotion to the Premier League in the playoff final, but just to see the fans enjoy that day, and just to enjoy it. Like I said, it's been so overdue. It's such a long time since the club had been in the Premier League and been through so much, over that 25 years, that it was a brilliant day and had a great time. And I'm really looking forward to watching the next season in the Premier League again.
And a privilege to be on stage and handing the trophy over to the current captain, Matty Grimes.
Yeah, he's been fantastic all season, hasn't he? I think he was probably, the missing piece in the team that's managed to glue everything together. But yeah, to get onto the stage and bring on the trophy in front of 50,000, it was a real honour. Like I said, it's had a fantastic day, and it was so good just seeing so many familiar faces that I've played with, just to see them, such a great mood and just really enjoying themselves. But yeah, they deserve it. They've been brilliant all season. The club's been fantastic for the last few years, and the city really, really deserves this.
And who were you the bigger fan of? Punjabi MC, Tom Brennan, The Enemy? Which was your favourite of those three?
I managed to get on the on top of the bus to watch Tom Brennan play, and then obviously I was at backstage watching The Enemy play the song when all the plays went on. So I managed to see that close up. So yeah, it was brilliant, wasn't it? It was such a good day, and yeah, just so good just to see people enjoying themselves and to be able to be that close up and enjoy it. I mean, I was considering going there as a fan anyway, just to see the celebrations, but to be that close to it, it was really, really good.
Brilliant. And one last thing of recent times that I'm going to ask you about before we go back and go through your career. The game against Watford, the fans went through a bit of a repertoire of songs singing about former players, and your song, which has always been a favourite, I think, for a lot of people, that was sung for quite a long time. That must have been nice to hear. I think you knew about that.
Yeah, well, I didn't know about it until somebody told me. I wasn't at the game, but yeah, I heard about it, and yeah, it's just nice just to still feel appreciated from the fans. And I think the fans are the best I've ever encountered in my whole football career. Look, they sell out the CBS Arena every week, and near enough sell out every single away ground. So yeah, it's just thankful that you still remembered, and yeah, it was nice to hear that. It's a nice touch.
Do you ever find yourself singing that song to yourself around the house? It is a very catchy song, isn't it?
No, it is. I remember when we got promoted from League Two, somebody sent me, I think, what was it, Wagner from Britain's Got Talent? I think somebody sent me a video of him singing it. So, no, I don't really sing it around the house much.
Well, a brilliant song and great memories and really good having you back, and I think thoroughly deserved. But I am going to rewind a few years, going to go back to when you were around 18, and your youth career was MK Dons. And then I think you were promised a contract and it didn't come through, and you moved up to Scotland at an early age.
Yeah, MK Dons was a bit of a tricky one because I think it was so early when they just moved up from Wimbledon, so it wasn't a great setup at the time. But I got the chance to move up to Kilmarnock. I've been playing for the Scotland under-18s that season. It felt like a big step at the time, being 18. Moving country. Both my parents are both Scottish. They're both from Glasgow. And Kilmarnock at the time trained in Glasgow. So I moved up there and moved in with my aunt in her Clydebank. And I had a fantastic 4.5 years there. It was just, I always say to any young player, get the opportunity to go and play in Scotland. It's a really good opportunity because there's some big games to play in, a lot of televised games, and I had a brilliant 4.5 years. And I think it probably set me up for my career. There's a lot of experienced players there, like Manuel Pascali, James Fowler, real good, solid characters who played at the club for a long time. And I felt like you learnt so much often that you really managed to, become
it's
a really
amazing. You bring people to come watch. Sarah, chairperson of CCFPA, is with us. Phone going off in the background. Unbelievable. No worries. Hi, Sarah.
But yeah, no, it was a really good experience, and it took me a year and a half to break into the first team up there. I remember, I think at one point I'd been on the bench for 23 games without ever coming on, and it got to the point where I was going to move back to Forest Green back down in England, and then I got my break. I think we were playing Hamilton away, and because I'd been on the bench for 23 games without ever coming on, one of the players went down, lads went to warm up, and I was just sitting there thinking I've got no chance of coming on. And it was Jimmy Calderwood just turned round and just told me to get ready. I weren't ready. Shimpa just went out on the pitch, I think, like I said, about 15, 20 minutes into the game, and that was it, never looked back. So I think I played nearly every game from then for the next,
You didn't look back, because I've got a few of the stats. You came on, that was Hamilton Academicals in January 2010. A few days later, you had your first start. A few days later, that was a dramatic game, a 4-4 draw against Dundee United.
Yeah, some game to make your full debut. But I remember we went 2-0 down inside the first 20 minutes, and the substitution board come up, and I thought, oh no, I'm coming off. What a bad start this is. But it wasn't for me. Yeah, and the game ended up being 4-4, an 8-goal thriller. So yeah, it was good. And then I think the next game with Celtic, didn't we?
And scored your first goal a few days later after that. 3-0 cup win against Inverness. So a cracking start after a bit of time on the bench.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you make your debut, it's just sink or swim. And for me, the results went well, performances went well, and I think I was more than ready when I got an opportunity.
Now, I did notice in Scotland you were at your most prolific as a goal scorer. Is that the standard of Scottish football? Were you playing further forward?
Well,
What was the difference?
in my whole time at Coventry, I've always been a sitting midfielder, been a more defensive one, and I've always played more attacking players like, Gus Hamer and Tom Bayliss. Players who've got the freedom to go on and attack. But in the early days, I really was a box-to-box midfielder, and I played quite a lot of games right midfield as well. So I think just a combination of that and getting forward a bit more allowed me to score a lot more goals. But no, I never really got forward too much in my time at Coventry.
Yeah, well, you scored 7 goals in your first full season for Kilmarnock in 32 appearances. So a really good return. And I think it was 18 goals in 113 appearances up there. So a really good time, really good goal scoring time, and a lot of games. On the 18th of March 2012, did have a bittersweet day, which I do want to talk about. You were a cup final winner, Celtic in the final.
Yeah, so it's a bit of it, like I said, a bit of sweet. All my family are Celtic fans. So my dad grew up in Clydebank. He was a massive Celtic fan. Used to watch him every week on the TV. Used to go and watch him when he was younger. And then obviously managed to make it to the League Cup final at Hampden. To be honest with you, I never really expected to win the game because Celtic was such a strong team. They're going for the treble at that point. We started the game well, and then we managed to get, I think it was the 96th minute, Van Tornhout scored the goal, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to win the League Cup here. And I think there's 50,000 there in the day. And then obviously the full-time whistle went. I just remember celebrating with everybody, so just jubilant. Everybody's really emotional. What a great day. I think it's the first, I can't remember how many years, but it was the first time Kilmarnock won the League Cup for something like 50 or 60 years. I just remember just turning around and I was looking for my family in the crowd because I knew there were a couple of rows behind the dugout. And then I just saw the paramedics there. And a member of the staff come over and took me down the tunnel. It turned out my dad had a heart attack a couple of minutes after the final whistle. And he passed away inside the stadium. It was the day after Fabrice Moran had his heart attack at Tottenham as well. So it was a really, like I said, what an achievement to win the League Cup, with all my family there. But yeah, it was a really tough time. But if you're gonna pass, I'm sure he would have chosen that moment with his final moments watching me win the cup final against Celtic.
Yeah, a really jubilant time turned into a really sad occasion, and I was really sorry to read about that because I think you had a bit of time away from the game.
It wasn't too long. I think I took a week, 2 weeks off. But I remember at the time thinking, my dad would, if he was watching down, he would want me to get back in and playing football and doing what I love. Not feeling sorry for myself or not struggling with it. I think the best thing for me was to get back in the team, back with my teammates, and get back playing football was the best way to deal with it. And I definitely think that helped me out. My teammates helped me out massively, and Kilmarnock were brilliant as well. From the chairman, manager Kenny Shields, and all the staff, they were absolutely brilliant at the time.
That's good to hear. And Celtic must have been sick of the sight of you because for the first time since 1955, Kilmarnock then went and won at Celtic Park not so long later. And you're on the score sheet in that game as well.
Yeah, that was because we actually played Celtic a few weeks after the cup final. I think they beat us 6-0 or 6-1, and they won the league that day. And yeah, it was nice. It was nice to go back to Celtic and get that win. I don't know if it's a bit of closure or whatever you want to call it, but obviously all my family Celtic fans. I have family in the stand, season ticket holders to go and watch them every week. So it was a nice day to get that win and just put that one to bed.
So some great results up with Kilmarnock. Would you say that was one of the better times of your career apart from Coventry?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Coventry aside, it's where I've spent the second longest time in my career. I had a great time, 4.5 years. Played a lot of football, learnt the game, had some great managers in Kenny Shields, Mixu Patalainen, Jim Jeffries, Jimmy Calderwood, some great people. People who's been in football a long time, and I felt like it really set me up for my career.
And in November 2012, while there, you got your one Scotland cap.
Yeah.
Which we were just talking about before we went on air, a 2-1 win over Luxembourg in a friendly, undefeated in Scotland.
100% win record. But no, I was probably a bit lucky to get in. I've been doing well in the league up in Scotland. I've been playing for under 21s. And I think when they named the squad, I think 6 or 7 players pulled out. So I managed to get myself a late call-up. And I just remember just being so excited for it. And it just felt like a real honour. Something you could tick off in your career that you played for your country. Yeah, I would have liked to have played more, but the reality was they had a really strong squad at that time and some really good players playing at a top level. But yeah, on a personal note, it was a big achievement for me and something I'll always look back on with great memories.
Congratulations. Like I say, great achievement. you did move on. You were signed by you. There was a lot of interest in England for you at that time. I think there was a few big clubs looking at you, and it was Bristol City that you came down south to move to. Derek McInnes signed you there.
Yeah, do you know what? I think I got to the point where my contract was running down at Kilmarnock, and I wanted, a bit of a different challenge. I always wanted to move back down to England to play. And Bristol City come in quite early in the window. And obviously, it was a good opportunity for me to go and play Championship football. The team was struggling at the time in the relegation zone, and got off to a bad start. So I remember signing there, and I think the first game we lost 4-0 against Leicester. Derek McInnes got a sack the next day, and he sat thinking this might not have been too good a move. On a plus note, I did manage to play a lot of games from that season, but it never really worked out at Bristol. Like I said, I managed to play most of the games from January to the end of the season, and then I tore my cruciate that pre-season back in League One, and I don't think I ever started a game for them ever again.
Yeah, so 19 games in your first season there, and then two after that. Yeah. Yes, they were relegated. So we'll gloss over time at Bristol City onto Oldham, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, Chris. There's a lot to talk about your time at Coventry, but you went to Oldham, played 87 games there. Went to Leyton Orient, played 24 games there as a record signing. Both of those teams you were captain of the side. I think you went straight in as captain at Oldham.
Yeah, no, it was Lee Johnson. So I played with Lee Johnson up at Kilmarnock, and he wanted to sign me. To be honest, I hadn't played a game in over a year at that point due to an injury. I mean, it was probably a bit of a step down from Bristol City, but it was an opportunity to go back and play football. And I really enjoyed my football there. I think the team actually done quite well in that first season. I think we managed to get within touch and distance of the playoffs. And I think we had the lowest budget in the league, in League One. So it was probably an overachievement for them. But after 2 seasons there, I wanted to move on again. I wanted to try and get myself back into the Championship. And Leyton Orient trying to build a good squad for League Two with the ambition of trying to get back up there. But obviously things didn't turn out as well as I thought they would. And I think we went through 5 managers that season. And then I think there was a problem with the ownership and lads getting paid, and then the club was just in a bit of a mess. So, it didn't turn out too well there in the end.
No, it didn't turn out. They were relegated to the National League for the first time in their histories. Coventry came in. That's the good thing that came of this. It didn't quite work out, and it was a bad time at Coventry. It was May 2017. Coventry just been relegated to League Two, the lowest Coventry have ever found themselves. And Mark Robbins came in for you. Was your contract up at Leyton Orient?
No, I'd signed a 3-year deal there, but there was a clause in there if the club got relegated, I could leave for free. So they got in contact with me. And to be fair, I had quite a few offers from League Two and back up in Scotland. But when Coventry come in, Coventry's a big team, and they weren't far away from where I lived. And I remember thinking, if they can get themselves right, get themselves turned around, there's no ceiling on how high they can go. And I probably didn't realise how well things would go, but I just saw it as a real good opportunity to go to play in a football team that wants to play good football, that's got a good fan base, and that's probably the biggest club in League Two at the time.
And what was the atmosphere around the club like at that time? Because, very, very different to it is now. In 2017, we'd just been relegated to League Two, but we had just won the Chequers Trade Trophy. Fans were sort of back on board a little bit. Mark Robbins had just come back in for his second spell at the club. How big an influence was he on coming to Coventry, and what was he like as a manager?
Yeah, no, he was just talking through what he wanted to do for the club, what his plans were. I think he needed to rebuild a team. Obviously, they've been struggling for a number of seasons, and then with the lowest point going back down to League Two. But he wanted to build a team, and obviously players like Michael Doyle come in, some real experience, players like Mark McNulty. So they're building a good team. But yeah, there was a lot of change that needed to happen. You could see that changes need to happen at the training ground. They need to get the fans back on side. It just, the club just needed turning around and pushing and getting themselves in the right direction. Obviously, Mark Robbins played a massive part in rebuilding the whole football team from the ground up, from the medical staff to the training ground to the players to the recruitment. There was a big job that needed doing.
And did you notice that difference instantly? Did that happen over a long period of time? Because obviously 7 seasons at the club, there was some massive changes in your time.
Yeah, just obviously when you come in, you don't see what's happened before in the seasons previous. You obviously played against Coventry. They always had good players, but never seemed to be able to do well in League One when I played against them. But yeah, you saw the changes, and there wasn't massive changes. There were small changes. So the training ground, like little bits, just kept getting better. The calibre of players coming kept getting better. The backroom staff almost every season seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger, which it needed to be because, in the early days, it was just, Mark Robbins and, an AD Vivesh, and one or two physios that was trying to do everything. But, you look at where it was then, where it is now, and you saw obviously all the backroom staff on the pitch who's done a fantastic job. But there's so many of them, but they're needed. They are needed. And I think if you want to have a big, successful football team, that's what you need behind the scenes.
And it all started really well. 3-0 win against Notts County, first game of the season. Jody Jones hat-trick. 10,000, just over 10,000 there at the Ricoh Arena. How was that playing at such a big stadium with not many people in it? But
for League Two, 10,000 is not a bad crowd. For the CBS Arena, 10,000 doesn't look like much. It still looks like an empty stadium. Yeah, we got off to a really good start. Like I said, 3-0 against Notts County, and then was it 2-0 against Grimsby? And I remember thinking, like, this is going to be an easy season. We're going to fly up the league. And then I think we got back-to-back defeats in our next two, and it was sort of, bit of back to reality and thinking it's not going to be quite as easy as I thought this is going to be.
But you had a great partnership, you and Michael Dill. Did you click straight away as a central midfield partnership? Is it or something that took the season?
Do you know what? I think we probably got better as the season went on. I think the whole team got better as the season went on because it was a big turnaround in players. Players like Max Biamu coming from non-league, Mark McNulty, Jack Grimmer coming as well, Tom Bayliss, Jordan Shipley, all players coming into the team for the first time. So I felt as the season went on, it just got stronger and stronger. But obviously me and Doyle are two experienced players, two defensive midfielders. So I felt like we were really solid defensively. And you had Dom Heim come in as well. He spent most of his time on the bench for the majority of the first season, but coming to his own the latter stages and ended up going on to have a fantastic career. But like I said, we just got stronger as the season went on. I think it probably took a bit of time for the players to gel and bond, which it always does.
We did get stronger as the season went on. One low point was a lot of people will say their low points, the Coventry fans, 6-2 defeat against Yeovil. I don't think you played in that one.
No, I was watching it in the stands, and it was a bit of a shock, really, because it was a game we were obviously expected to win. But to lose 6-2, but it's probably a turning point in our season where probably gives a real wake-up call that we have to be better. We have to work harder. I think when you look from that result and how we ended the season, you watch the playoff games, the playoff final. It was a really, really hard-working team. It was a team that was hard to score against, and I think our defensive record was really good.
And speaking about that end to the season, there's 3 games there that must stand out as the most memorable games of your time at Coventry. Maybe rode our luck against Notts County in the game at the Ricoh Arena, but onto Meadow Lane. Is that one of the highlights of your time at Coventry that night?
Yeah, definitely. I thought we'd done it. I don't think we played terribly in the first leg, but we probably got a bit lucky with the penalty. Probably wasn't a penalty, but yeah, like I said, I think that away game, it's probably the first time travelling to the game, you sort of got an idea of how big the football club can actually be. But, going on the bus, running to Notts County, and just the amount of Coventry fans there just seemed to outnumber the Notts County fans. There were flares flying everywhere. And the team just performed so well on the day. I think we just blew Notts County away in that first half. Obviously, got 2 early goals, and we looked strong. And then we rode the storm a little bit in the second half. It's the scoreline at 2-1, and then I think it was Max Biamu scored and Tom Bayliss scored, and we just finished that game so strong. And I think when you look back, I don't think there'd be a more convincing playoff win from the semi-final and the final with the amount of goals that we scored. Trying to think how many goals it was. So 8 goals in total.
8 goals in the 3 games, yeah.
It's a good return. It's a really good return. And yeah, we were a strong team. Like I said, you were players like Tom Bayliss, Jordan Shipley come through from the academy who just got stronger and stronger as the weeks and the games went on.
And then on to Wembley, Exeter. Was that your first Wembley experience? Had you played there before?
No, I've never been there before. I remember being really nervous for the game because obviously there's a lot riding on it, promotion, and I thought Exeter just looked a bit like deer. I don't know what the right word is to describe it. I just felt like they didn't perform on the day, and I just thought we were really solid, and our attacking plays were really good on the day. And we just, like I said, I think we scored 3 goals in the space of 10 minutes in that second half, and blew them away. But I just remember the day going out there onto the pitch, and you just look round, and half the stadium just filled with Coventry fans. Like I said, if the second leg away at Notts County, give you a taste how big the club can be. When we got to Wembley, you're thinking, this is a massive club. It really is. Fan base is phenomenal. And I think that fan base was probably intimidating for Exeter in the day. And it was a massive, massive partners winning that game.
I got to say, a great day out for the fans and just nice that Coventry performed and stood up to challenge on that day. The 8 games you played in that first season, 1 goal.
Yeah.
That was an important one at a time when, we were on the periphery of the playoffs and Stevenage at home, 3rd goal in a 3-1 win.
Yeah, and I remember that was probably one of the only games that I played a bit more advanced midfield. I think we played me, Doyle and Tom Bayliss in a 3, I think. And I think Doyle was the one that was sitting more on a bit more of a licence to get forward. So yeah, I managed to get myself a goal. And yeah, look, like I said, I've been a defensive midfielder for Coventry, but when I get the licence to get forward a little bit, sometimes I can nick in with the occasional goal.
Yeah, and there's more goals coming up. I'll go chronologically. So that was us back into League One, and that's when you became captain, or sort of shared it with Michael Doyle that season. I think you had half games as captain each. Big step up, League One. You'd been there before. You'd played there with Bristol City. You'd played high with Bristol City. You played there with Oldham. Big step up from League Two?
Not massively. I think there is a step up. I don't think League One and League Two is a massive, massive difference. I was unlucky in that first League One season because I got injured in the off season doing some running, and it took me to the end of pre-season to get fit. So I had to buy my time a little bit to get myself back in the team, and probably get back in the team more towards Christmas time. And we managed to make a little bit of a late push for playoffs, but it was just a little bit too late. But I think the team was building. It was improvement again, moving up the leagues. Yeah, I think it gave us probably a little bit of a taste, or we can get ourselves to the top end of the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great start for the season in the League One to finish 8th, to give ourselves a chance. Did add some good players, some exciting players, the Geordie Houlas, and Bakaras and Johnson Clark Harris. So, like you say, we were adding to the team. Did you feel like we were getting better? Did you feel that, belief amongst the squad was we can go one further and get into the Championship?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I always say, Coventry's always managed to, since my time at the football club, has always managed to recruit really good attacking players, like you touched on there, Geordie Houlas, Johnson Clark Harris. We still had Maxim Biamu then at that point, Bakayoko. So we had the attacking options up there that would, we had Brighton up there coming as well, who's a really good player, Connor Chaplin. So, no shortages of attacking options. But we probably just, our form earlier on in the season probably just hindered us getting ourselves into playoffs that season. But like I said, it was a good stepping stone for what was to come the following season.
We'll talk about great attacking options. One of the highlights of that season, when we were just pushing playoffs, was a victory away at the Stadium of Light. Another one that highlights it was Coventry.
Probably the biggest scoreline I've ever played in. Yeah, I can't remember exactly how the scoreline went. I remember we had a really good first half, got ourselves into a lead, and then Sunderland managed to get it back. And, I thought we played really well in the day. And I think Connor Chaplin come on with the winner in the last kick of the game. But to win 5-4, it just, and obviously the fans have travelled so far for that game. And I think they're really up high at the Stadium of Light. It was such a good occasion. And give you a taste of what was to come for Coventry. Playing it on the big stage against Sunderland that that can compete with the biggest and best teams.
So we finished 8th. You played 32 games. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back for the next season, where I think it could involve a promotion and then some playoff heartbreak. But great chatting. Short break. Little word from our sponsors, and we'll be back to speak more with Liam Kelly. Thank you to the sponsor of this podcast, Contractor Financial. If you're a Sky Blues fan thinking about your next move, whether that's buying your first home, remortgaging, or just planning ahead, Contractor Financial are here to help. They're mortgage specialists that search across a wide range of lenders to find the right deal for you, securing mortgage rates up to 6 months before your current deal ends, helping you stay ahead of any rate changes. And because they're big supporters of the Sky Blue Army, they're offering an exclusive £200 discount for fans. Just quote Sky Blue when you get in touch. It's not just mortgages either. They can help with insurance, pensions, and even wills, so you can get your full financial setup sorted in one place. To find out more, get in touch with Joe, Billy, or Sophie by scanning the QR code on screen, or call 02477 182 004. Thank you to Contractor Financial, for sponsoring today's podcast. And back with Liam for the second half. And Liam, I've got so much that I feel like there's still to talk about. It really has been a great 7 years at Coventry, great career that you had before. But we're back. We're in the champion. Where are we here? We're in League One, but we've moved. A bit of a strange start to the 2019-2020 season. Moved away from the Rico Arena and playing the games at Birmingham.
Yeah, no, it was a strange one. We'd obviously heard rumours about it going into pre-season. I think we'd maybe played a pre-season game and on the coach on the way back to the training ground when the actual news come through that when we were playing in Birmingham. And yeah, look, it was obviously a strange one. Felt for the fans that they'd have to be travelling through there, but it ended up being a fantastic season. It's probably testament to the group, that group of players and Mark Robbins and Adi. But it didn't really affect us. If anything, it made us better. And we obviously went on to have a fantastic season. And still a lot of the fans managed to travel through and watch us. What was a strange start to the season would end up being an even stranger finish as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like the pitch improved? Because at the time, the Rico was never the best pitch, was it? Whereas I always felt Birmingham looked a better playing surface. And we'd signed some really good footballers that season, Dabo, Jamie Allen, Callum O'Hare, Liam Walsh.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in what you're saying. Obviously, the rugby was still playing at the CBS, and sometimes we have to play a day after them, and you turn up, and the grass wouldn't have been touched, and you think, it's going to be quite tough to play football on this. But yeah, going to Birmingham, it was a brilliant playing surface, and like you touched on, again, I think the recruitment to bring in some great players like Jamie Allen, Frankie Dabo, Matty Godden, Liam Walsh. It was a really good footballing team that played some great stuff that season, and more than just good footballers, they were good people and good characters, which you need if you're going to try and do anything successful.
Carl McFadzean came in that season as well, and another great leader for the club. The two of you, what was he like as a character to have around the dressing room?
Yeah, no, Fads is brilliant. He's a big character, and he's a good leader. And I think he was probably what we're missing at the time. We needed. Obviously, Dom was being brilliant for the past 2-3 seasons, and I think Fads, Dom's managed to learn so much of Fads playing alongside him as the leader, and he's great to have. He's a funny guy around the dressing room, and look, he ended up having a great career at Coventry as well, and we're still good friends and keep in touch to this day.
And we had some great results that season. My favourite away game ever around that period was a 3-3 draw at Portsmouth with 9 men. A couple of great away wins. 4-1 Wycombe was probably, I think, just a touch of class from a few players, and a 4-1 win away at Tranmere. A couple of brilliant wins, 1-0 against Ipswich and Sunderland. And then, like you say, such a strange end to the season. We were always going to win it, weren't we, from there?
Yeah, I think our form had been so good. I think we'd only lost one game. No, we went and lost the game since around November-ish time. And we were just playing so well. We're coming up with last-minute winners, last-minute equalisers, and we just looked like the form team. We're playing with such confidence. I remember thinking, I can't remember how many points we were clear, something like 7 from third place with a game in hand. So, it was really in our own hands, but we played the Ipswich game 1-1-0, and then we'll train on the Friday, and I can't remember who we were playing the next day, and then the news come out that we've got to stop training, the game's been postponed, and we didn't know what was going on. And yeah, it was a real funny time because we were sat at home. Obviously, you hear that the league could be null and void, could go on points per game, it could carry on, so you just don't know what's going on. And just speaking to all the players at the time, just that uncertainty, it was disappointing because we were doing so well that we just wanted to see the season off. But luckily enough, come the end of the season, points per game, but it's just a shame that we couldn't celebrate it with the fans. We managed to get Coventry City back in the Championship.
So we won defeat in 21. It was when the league did get suspended. And I was feeling when it was announced that we won it. Was it a celebration? Was there a tinge of disappointment that you couldn't celebrate with the fans?
No, we were still obviously over the moon because we managed to win the league. But it would have been nice to have had the Open Top Tour plus managed to lift the trophy on the pitch in front of the fans. But it was what it was. We couldn't do anything, but we managed to still celebrate it in our own way at the training ground with blue gloves on. Yeah, it was what it was. If I could go back in time, I'd love to be able to do it on the pitch. But yeah, we still managed to win the league.
But still a fantastic achievement for the club. Been signed a few years before and been in League Two and in the doldrums. Was that this really when you're thinking, we're coming back here.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, from the depths of League Two to getting the club back into the Championship, but we're still playing at Birmingham. But we're playing in Birmingham in front of no fans for that first season. So yeah, it was a strange few years. It was a strange few seasons. But like I said, I think obviously the fans couldn't make it to the games, but the strength of that group and the characters at the time, managed to see us through.
Yeah, like you say, we're still at St Andrews, first season back in the Championship, in front of no fans. Some really good signings again that season. O'Hare really went from strength to strength. I think Sheaf came in that season, Ben Sheaf, Gus Hamer. So a great midfield.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, the squad just seemed to get stronger and stronger, and the group was really good. And talked about Ben Sheaf, Gus Hamer, Callum O'Hare. There's some real good quality players who go on and have fantastic careers and probably quite young when they first come in. Yeah, they just brought the quality and the level of training up to another level, which we needed because we knew that first season back in the Championship was going to be tough. And it was tough and it was touch and go for a while, going towards the end of the season, whether we'd be able to stay in the league. And I think it's probably the Rotherham away game where we managed the bit where if they beat us, they leapfrog us outside of the relegation zone and we would have dropped into it. But it was a big performance on the day, a goal from Leo Ostergaard, and we managed to win 1-0. And I can't remember how many games we won, but we won the next 4 or 5 in a row. Really pushed ourselves up that table. Coming into the season, we were nowhere near the relegation
zone. Finished 16th that season. For a really impressive thing, given the importance of that Rotherham game, almost looked like you lose that game, you're looking at getting relegated. But 16th was a great finish. You've missed one important game out, 2-1 win against Wycombe.
I remember that one.
you were described by Dean Ashton, I believe, on some highlights programme as like Lothar Matthäus.
Do you know what? It was quite a funny game because I remember just intercepting the ball and being about 20, 25 yards out and just trying my luck and the ball went in. But it was quite funny because I had a really bad foot injury before the game and I had to get the doctor to give me an injection just to be able to play. And my foot was completely numb, so it's probably why the ball went in. But then I tore my groin in about the 35th minute. And it was quite bad. I could barely run. But because we'd already made a substitution in the first half, they were just going to wait till half time to take me off. So I went and played near enough up top. And then we get a free kick. And I wasn't supposed to be in the box. I was supposed to be in the edge of the box. But I thought, I can't run back. So I'll just stay in the box. And then I think Leo's come over the top, headed one straight to me and just headed at the back of the goal. And 2-0 up at half time, get me off.
I injured more often. I think there was a bit of a spell on the sidelines after that, though, weren't there?
Yeah. Do you know what? My groin healed quite well, but it was my foot what I got the injection for that just took about 6-7 weeks for it to heal. But it was disappointing because I'd been on a good run of form. I'd managed to get myself back in the team. I think we'd gone about 6 or 7 unbeaten. So, it was really disappointing to drop out of the team at that point.
Yeah, we did have a question from Moz on Facebook, and his question was getting injured and scoring 2 fabulous goals against Wycombe worth the pain?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it was a bad start to the season that year that really we were playing catch up, and there was a great win against Millwall 6-1 at the end of the season, and then it was back at the Rico the following season. That first game against Forest, the difference, Notts County in League Two, Nottingham Forest in the Championship.
But I remember missing the start of that season. In one of the games we were playing Stoke away, and I managed to clear one off the line and slid into the post, and I'd done my PCL, and I was out for 4 or 5 months with that over the summer, so I missed the start of the season. But I remember being sat there in the stands watching it, and it just felt like a different football club when we were back to the CBS. From them early days in League Two, to then playing in Birmingham, to then having COVID. But then, what start to the season we had, and I think we were in the top 2 for the first couple of months. It was at Fads that got the winner. Last minute winner against Forest.
Yeah. Well, Fads got the winner. 10 minutes earlier, it was a certain Victor Gyökeres who got us back into the game and level at 1-1. That was really the season he burst onto the scene as well. He'd been on loan the season before. What sort of impression did you get from him when he first came and the improvement you saw from him during his time?
Yeah, I remember when Vic come in. Obviously, Vic's a really good trainer, really good character. Obviously, he'd come from Swansea and been on loan from Brighton. And he was sort of starting a game here and there, coming off the bench, and he looked a real handful. And you think, it's definitely, there's a good player in there. I think just that summer he'd come back and he was just like a different animal. He just looked, physically, looked bigger, looked stronger, he looked more confident. And he ended up being, probably the best striker in the Championship that season. You look, he's gone from strength to strength to strength to being on the cusp of, Premier League and Champions League winner. But it's just a testament to his attitude and, how hard a worker he is. And like I said, we talk about recruitment and bringing players in, it just kept getting better and better. And he was probably, the tip of that.
Was there Mark Robins obviously developed quite a few players who improved under his guy, and a lot of strikers as well. Obviously, being a striker himself, how much do you put that down to the Robins, or is Vic a really self-motivated player?
No, a bit of both. Obviously, you talk about Mark Robins being a striker, a really successful striker in his career, and you look at the strikers who've had him a time. You look at players like Max Biama in the early days, Mark McNulty, Matty Godden, who's probably the best goal scorer I've ever played with, through to Victor Gyökeres. So he's definitely got an eye for picking a striker, which you've seen that over the seasons. But yeah, Vic was just at another level where in them 2 seasons he just looked like such a good quality striker, and I didn't think he'd go on and do as well as what he's done, but like I said, it's just pure mindset with him, and his ability to go and take the game by the scruff of the neck has been shown even with the recent game, against PSG, where he just controlled their 2 centre halves, and he looked like a complete total striker.
And enjoying watching him. And is he going to be a Premier League winner at the end of the season?
Hopefully so, yeah. I mean, like I said, they've worked so hard and they've got so close in recent seasons, Arsenal, but they're in prime position, and the Champions League and the Premier League's now fully in their hands.
And we look forward to welcoming him back to the CBS next season. You didn't play so many games that season. Injury hit, 8 games, 8 substitute appearances, 2 great wins over Fulham, but then into the 22-23 season, where a difficult start again. 8 games before we won our first game. 1 win in the first 10. That was at home to Middlesbrough. Bit of affected, I think, with the rugby going on. What was the feeling going into that season?
Yeah, I remember there was the Rugby World Cup there, and I remember there was doubts whether the first game was going to be on, and we didn't really know the state of the pitch, but I've played something like about close to 100, rugby games there, and then obviously had the pitch inspection. You saw, all the stuff in the news, and the pitch just looked atrocious. You're thinking, this can't happen, this can't be allowed to happen. And it probably we're playing catch up with the amount of games, weren't playing as regularly as other teams, so it's probably contributed to that slow start to the season. But like I said, when we did get up and go in, the form was unbelievable, and you touched on the quality of players like Ben Sheaf, Gus Hamer, Gyökeres, real good quality players who each season were getting more experienced. They're getting older, they were getting even better, so that probably played its part in us having such a strong finish to those seasons.
Yeah, and Josh Eccles was having a real breakthrough around that time as well. So a great midfield, a midfield that you weren't getting in regular. It was Hamer, Sheaf and Eccles were probably the 3 go-to players, but an injury to Sheaf towards the end of the season, and you stood up to the plate.
Yeah, do you know, it's quite tough. I didn't really play a lot that season, and sometimes you have to accept when the team are playing well and players are playing well that they're keeping their place in the team. It's probably a bit unexpected, the Blackburn game, because I haven't played much at all. Obviously, Ben, got I can't remember, a calf or a hamstring injury, and managed to come on at half time. Not playing a lot of football before then, but I just felt like I hit the ground running. I've been training for a long time, and I was just ready for that moment. And what a game it was against Blackburn away. Ben Wilson, last minute winner. And I remember when we scored the goal, I didn't know who scored it. I didn't know who scored it until Ben started wheeling away to the wrong end of the stand. Yeah, what an occasion it was, and ended up being a strong finish to the season.
Yeah, I mean, you played the rest of the games that season. Reading, Birmingham, Middlesbrough, when we needed a point on the last game of the season, and then back to Middlesbrough in the playoffs. I think Ben Sheaf came back in, but you kept your place as well. I think Josh Eccles might have missed out in the semi-finals. But how did those games go? Was the belief growing at that stage?
I mean, it was obviously, it was touch and go whether we make the playoffs, but like you said, I think we won the Reading game, won the Birmingham game. We needed the point against Middlesbrough on the last day. We had to play Middlesbrough 3 times in a row. But the only good thing about playing Middlesbrough 3 times in a row is you've got to really know the opposition. They were probably one of, if not the best attacking teams in the league that season, with some really good players. And over those 3 games, to only concede 1 goal was a massive achievement. I think we had the most clean sheets in the league that season. It was a real testament to how solid defensively we were. And I think we were quite comfortable at being a bit more of the defensive team in those playoff games, because we knew with Gyökeres and Hamer up the top end of the pitch, we could really hurt teams in the counter. I felt like if we'd gone and tried to go toe-to-toe and played attacking football against Middlesbrough, they had the quality to punish us. But, to concede 1 goal in those 3 games, and what an occasion it was in Middlesbrough away. Gus, scoring that winner, and then the celebrations over with the home fans and the away fans. It was just brilliant. It was a really great day, and just remember thinking, 1 more game to take this club to the Premier League.
And they just seem to be getting better and better with Ben Wilson scoring at Blackburn, and then the home games filling out the Rico at the time against Birmingham. And those Middlesbrough performances, players were really stepping up to the mark. And it's back to Wembley.
Yeah, no, back to Wembley, and just remember thinking, because Luton had a great season, managed to finish third in the league, and we knew it was going to be a tough game. I think I can't remember exactly how the games had gone. I think we drew with them at the CBS. I can't remember how the away game went, but we knew it was going to be a tough game. But we knew it was going to be, a big occasion. We knew Wembley was going to be sold out. I just remember just being so motivated for the game, just wanting to get it over the line. And I remember walking out there at Wembley and packed out Wembley. It was such a big day, and I just felt like we never really got going in that first half. We didn't play our best football. It was probably a game of two halves, really. Obviously going in 1-0 down, and then out for the second half. I thought we played really well. And probably I felt if we could have kept Gus fit, obviously got injured, he would have been, because the game was starting to get a little bit stretched, and he had that quality, to unlock the defence with either a goal or a pass. We managed to keep him on the pitch. I thought we had a good chance of winning that game.
Was Vic fully fit as well? I think he'd been struggling with an injury.
Yeah, I think he had been struggling with a little bit of a niggle. Mentality-wise, he was always going to play, and he's a real handful. So like I said, we're just disappointed we couldn't get over the line. But looking back, we gave it absolutely everything on that day to get the win, and it just wasn't meant to be.
I'll tell you who didn't struggle, though, given that he'd not played that many games in the season, 120 minutes, and still stepping up to score the fifth penalty. Talk about the pressure of stepping up for that one in front of the Luton fans. That takes some guts, doesn't it?
Yeah, I remember even the coin toss before actually do two coin tosses. I think it was orange and blue. So first coin toss is to pick ends, and we wanted it in front of the Coventry fans. So I picked blue, orange, right. Next coin toss, orange or blue, orange again. They get the first kick. So we lost both coin tosses, which doesn't go great. It was a good quality penalty shootout. 11 out of 12 scored. We'd practiced them. We had practiced them, and I was confident stepping up that I was going to score. Strangely enough, you thought it'd be nerve-wracking, but I just felt confident. I think I'd done about 10 the day before and scored all 9 or 10 of them. So I felt confident I was going to score, but it is pot luck. It's a roll of the dice sometimes with penalties. It just would have taken one of them missing one of their 5 and we're in the Premier League. But looking back now, had we got promoted to Premier League, it would have been tough, because I don't think the clubs were in as good a position as what they're in now. I think looking at the Coventry City now, they've got a strongest playing squad, bigger playing squad, more strength and depth, and they're more equipped for Premier League football than what we were. But like you said, just disappointed we couldn't have done it, because it would have been a great day for those fans to celebrate.
But that doesn't hide the disappointment, surely, after that game. A lot of visibly upset players. Fanke needed a lot of picking up after that. A tough one to bounce back from for the next season.
It was always going to be tough, because we lost Vic and we lost Gus. We had some good loan players in Callum Doyle, Norton Cuffey went back to their club. So there was a bit of a rebuilding project to go on, and the club needed to bring in more players. So it was always going to be tough. But like I said, we still managed to get to the FA Cup semi-final and just missed out on the playoffs. So considering we lost those players, it wasn't a bad season in the end.
Yeah, you got awarded an extra 1-year extension on the contract, and how much that FA Cup run was brilliant. Another highlight of your time at Coventry, no doubt.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just remember I think I only started 1 or 2 games, or come on in one of the games on the run, because the team were doing so well. We can't have any complaints. We're not playing, and the team were performing how well they're performing. Yeah, just remember sitting on the bench for the Wolves game, that last minute winner, just running on the pitch. Just knowing that you're going to Wembley. But I remember the Man U game, 3-0 down. You think this game's gone. This game's absolutely finished. There's no chance of getting back in this. And bang, 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 you're in extra time. And then, you think you've won it. Obviously, Torp manages to get the ball in the back of the net. We're turning around asking, people behind us, is it onside? Is it onside? And they're giving us a thumbs up, telling us it's onside. And you're thinking, that's it, the game's done. And even back to this day, when you look back at the replay, it just depends where the VAR stopped that ball on his foot, where they draw that line. I still think it could be, judged to be onside. And we could have had an FA Cup final. It was a great run. Like I said, we're just disappointed with the VAR that we didn't make it to the final.
Yeah, I mean, not much you can do about the VAR, but I've always thought exactly the same. Really, the line didn't get moved, the ball didn't go, the frames didn't go forward. Was it a penalty to make it 3-3? We can argue this all day. Yeah. Big disappointment, but a great game. And another time that Coventry really put themselves on the national scene to show that we're back, or we're ready to be back?
Yeah, no, definitely. You look at League Two; it's always been an improvement season on season on season. It's got better. You know, the crowds have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it sells out. The playing squad's got better. You know, the backroom staff's got bigger, and yeah, Coventry's finally managed to put themselves back in the biggest league in the world.
Brilliant. So you left at the end of that season. You joined Rotherham. Been there two seasons now. Rotherham have just been relegated to League Two as well. How's the time been there?
Yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough. We've not managed to. Obviously, the first season we finished around mid-table-ish, which is a bit of an underachievement. And then, I found my minutes on the pitch get less and less and less. Not played a great deal this season. Disappointed with how the season's finished. But look, I think my time at Rotherham was up. So, I'm just glad to be, having a bit of time off now over the summer and having a bit of a rest and spending a bit of time at home.
And a lovely home in the lovely countryside. Did it feel a lot different to leaving Coventry? I take it was quite disappointing after 7 seasons at Coventry. How's the feelings?
Yeah.
Is it disappointing, or you've happy that everything you achieved?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, to look at Coventry and, season on season, like I keep talking about, it was obviously achievement after achievement and everything's going well. And even travelling back to watch Coventry games and the mood's so good. But then it's been, like I said, it's been a tough time at Rotherham where, there's been a lot of challenges on and off the pitch. So yeah, they're a very different feel to the football clubs, 2 completely different football clubs. But like I said, it's probably the right time for me just to have a bit of a break now and spend some time at home and just enjoy a summer away from football and just have a bit of a break.
Well, look, I hope the memories are all great. They certainly have been from us, and you're so well regarded as a Coventry City player. And again, I can't thank you enough for your time. I've got a few questions for myself. Going to have some questions from the listeners at home. First of all, Saturday afternoon, who's the first result you're looking out for at the moment?
I think we'll see, and it's been Coventry, hasn't it? With them up the top end of the league, you wanted to see them do well. You wanted to see them get themselves promoted. I mean, people's asked me this before, who do you support growing up? And it was a tough one because growing up where I grew up, there's no local team. You had Northampton up the road, you had Luton down the road. There's no MK Dons. My family all Celtic fans, up in Scotland from where they're from. So I think spending so much time at Coventry, you end up just, watching all the Coventry games and wanting them to win and wanting them to do well, because you've got such an affiliation with the fans, with the players that's still there, if the staff is still there. So yeah, it's the first result I look out for now at the weekend.
So I have got to ask, during pretty much, all of your 7 years at Coventry was all under one manager.
Yeah.
How did you feel a few months after leaving when Mark Robins was replaced?
Obviously Mark Robins is brilliant. It's a great career as Coventry City manager. He's done so much with the football club in terms of building it up and creating. But I was at Rotherham when Mark Robins left. But you always knew he was going to get himself back in there. Such a highly regarded manager, and I'm sure he wasn't short of options to get back into football. And I'm sure he'll continue to be a great manager.
And up there amongst the best managers?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've my best time in my career, in terms of player, in terms of achieving success, has been under Mark Robins. So, and he made me captain as well. So, yeah, I've got a lot to thank him for.
Brilliant. I'm going to go over to sort of people on Facebook, TikTok, and some questions that we've had from that have come in. So first of all, David from Rochester, he said, tell us about any celebrations that followed lifting the trophy at the training ground. Was there any skullduggery? Given that I'm sure you're in gloves and all 2 meters apart and...
Yeah, it was a difficult one. We obviously had to put the gloves on. We had to lift the trophy. Yeah, look, we managed to celebrate it in our own way, but that's about as much as I'll say. I can't say any more than that.
All right. Now, this one's come in from a lot of people, strangely, and you can answer it if you know. We did talk about things you didn't want to talk about, and I didn't ask about this one. But Kev from Coventry, John from Bedworth, Joe from Coventry, and a few others. There's an unfortunate photo of you. What was so exciting about the game at Rangers?
Honestly, to this day, I know the photo. I look at things, I don't even know what. Do you know the only thing I can put it down to was they weren't my shorts. I think I got number 7 on because it was a pre-season game, and they could have just been the wrong size. They could have been too tight.
Small short. Pick the wrong ones out. Glenn from Bedworth, what was it like being captain during COVID lockdown?
I've always enjoyed being captain. I've always enjoyed leading the team and trying to lead a group of players. It's a difficult one because sometimes you're playing the game, you're trying to talk to people, and there's a lot of the crowd going on. The crowd dictate, tempo of the flow of game sometimes. During lockdown, there's no crowd there. It feels like a training game. So sometimes you feel like you've got to try and, control the tempo and the mood of the game, and probably your voice is heard more than what it would be, in a regular game.
And what about keeping the players sort of
To be honest,
together?
to be honest with you, we had a great group. We had Fads, we had Dom Hyam, we had Gokares. We had so many leaders in that group. Matty Godden. It wasn't just me. There was all of them could have been captain quite easily. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we managed to do.
Okay, one from Stephen Connolly on Facebook. What do you feel was the biggest factor in changing the mentality of the club and helping build the foundations for the success that's followed?
They're probably people, to be honest with you. People inside that building. People talk about Mark Robbins, people talk about Eddie Vivesh, people talk about Carl McFadden, Dave Boddy, Doug King. All these are motivated people. Michael Doyle in the early days. I think you need good characters in a football club, and you need the fan base. You're only as big as football clubs what your fan base is. So all that combined, just good characters that are really hard working and professional, and trying to do the right thing. Without all that put together, I don't think the club manages to get back to where they are.
And I know you won't say it, but Liam Kelly can be added to that list. A few quick fire ones to finish then. Best player you've played with?
I always say Gus. I think ability-wise, Gus, he could pick passes and score goals that, I don't think any other player I've played with been able to do. Sometimes you can freeze frame a picture and Gus will play a pass that even if you freeze it, you can't even see that it's on. Just his, absolute natural ability to do some of the things he does in the game. Yeah, he's the best player I've played with in terms of, ability with his feet.
Would you have him back next season?
100%, yeah. I think most clubs would, wouldn't they?
Best player you've played against?
Best player I played against? Probably a 21s game we played. Van Dijk played, so probably him in terms of what he's done in his career. Yeah, it was a 21s game for Scotland against Netherlands. So yeah, that's probably the player who's done the most in his career, I'd have to say.
Favourite City moment?
Favourite City moment as a player, as a fan.
Well, let's start with the player.
As a player, I'd probably have to go the League Two playoff final, just because winning League One was great, but we didn't get to do it on the pitch. Being able to win the playoff final in League Two was just it was a great occasion. I probably would have said to the League One, winning the league, but we never got to do it on the pitch.
Well, now we'll go with a fan. Let me say how nice it is to hear you describe yourself as a fan as well.
Yeah, probably watching Coventry lift the Championship trophy.
Where will we finish next season?
I do think they'll stay up. I think they've got such a good group and such a good track record of getting good players in the building. I think they'll stay up. I think they'll hopefully, get themselves around mid-table.
Mid-table. We'll
nice,
take that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have asked this one. Any plans to become a coach or a manager?
At some point, I'd like to do it, yeah. I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm doing at the minute, whether carry on playing, whether go try and do coaching. I'm just going to try and enjoy the summer for the time being. And seeing what the summer brings.
Brilliant. And we've got to ask this one because it's in every podcast. And I know you're a big fan of the podcast, so I've prepared. What are your favourite crisps?
Brazzles.
Brazzles,
isn't it? Yeah.
And then before we go, I'm going to ask you, we're here with the Coventry City Former Players Association.
Mm-hmm.
Great that you've been able to come back for Legends Day and come back for the celebrations last week. How is it being invited back by the club and by the Former Players Association and being part of that?
Yeah, no, it's massive. Like, obviously, it was great going and being able to take the trophy out to the team. But the Former Players Association have been brilliant as well. They managed to get me tickets for a number of games this season, which I've been to, and it's so nice just to see familiar faces, familiar players that I've played with, and being able to meet up with them and talk to them about past experiences, and obviously players from before my era who's gone on and achieved so many things in the game. And I think it's important that all that sticks together. Definitely, because it's important that the football club remember the past and where it's come from.
Well, listen, you're welcome back anytime. I'm sure, Sarah, there's 2 tickets waiting for you for any game in the Premier League next season. Thank you for doing this podcast. I'm sure I speak on behalf of every fan. 7 seasons, 180 games, 3 goals, 2 promotions, a championship trophy passed over last week. Great to hear that you're still a fan. You've been a massive part of the resurrection. We're back and you are part of that. So Liam Kelly, massive thanks for everything you did for Coventry City and for doing this podcast.
No worries. Cheers, guys. Thank you.